fellow Star Wars nerds, and welcome to Unlimited Content, the podcast where two brothers talk about all of Star Wars TV and film in chronological order on the internet as an excuse to hang out more. We're your hosts, Sam and Jack, and this week we are talking about none other than the Clone Wars movie. Jack Ford, how the heck are you?
I'm doing better now that I'm on this podcast, as usual.
Yes.
Now that I'm with my brother Sam.
Yes. Yeah, not Max. Just me.
My only brother. My only one.
Oh, man. What's going on, Jack? What have you been up to?
Mostly Zelda. To be honest.
Dude? Yes. Same. Not as much as I would like to be up to Zelda, but I have been up to Zelda. My copy got delivered a day late, so we're recording this right now. It is... What is it? The 15th. Monday, May 15th. Yeah. Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom came out on Friday. My copy got delivered on Saturday. I played it for only like 2 hours and then went to bed. And then it was Mother's Day and I didn't play it all on Mother's Day. And then I played a little bit today. So I've only beaten like the main tutorial part. And now I'm starting to get into like the real story mode. But Dude, this game's so much fun.
Yeah. I would love to talk more about it once we get into kind of our what we've been watching and playing and whatnot. Just get your overall first impressions and stuff, because I'd love to talk about it.
Yeah.
But before we get into that, we have a sponsor to pay for all our many bills.
Unlimited bills.
Unlimited. It never ends.
They never end. The bills never end.
This week's episode of Unlimited Content is brought to you by Canto Bight Casino and Resort. Now until July 4th, see special musical guest Figrin Dan and the Modal Nodes.
Figrin Dan and the Modal Nodes. Oh, man.
Yeah.
They're my favorite jizz artist.
They're the only jizz artist you want to listen to, right?
That's true.
They're masters of jizz.
They are masters of jizz. So we are not speaking inappropriately, I promise. In Star Wars, music is just called jizz. That's what it's called. That's George Lucas is being weird.
The jazz music that they play like in the cantina in the original Star Wars movie, all that music, canonically it's called jizz.
J-I-Z-Z.
So it's not us. It's
George Lucas.
It's them being nasty.
It's George Lucas. It's a genre of music. Just jazz from Star Wars. So
yeah, whose idea? Who on earth?
I blame old Georgie Poo, whose birthday was like 2 days ago.
Oh, happy belated birthday, Georgie Poo.
Indeed. I don't know why I called him Georgie Poo. Feels weird, but right.
You know what? It's endearing.
It is endearing.
Like, hopefully someday we'll have him on the podcast and we'll call him Georgie Poo constantly, and
we will.
Be like, don't call me that.
Yeah. I think we just sealed our fate into never having him on the podcast.
No, we had such a good chance of having him on the podcast, and now we ruined it.
No. Oh, man.
Well, Sam, before we get into our main segment and everything, do you want to talk a little bit about what you've been up to this week? What have you been watching, reading, playing? Obviously, we'll talk about Tears of the Kingdom. For sure. But before we get into that, you want to talk about whatever else you've been into lately?
Yeah. So yesterday, or the day before, I can't remember, I finished the Revenge of the Sith novelization. And let me just say, it's a work of art. It's so good.
Yeah.
Like, it's not just like it's cheesy Star Wars, because it's really not that cheesy. Like, as far as like, because it's like, what if you had the exact same story as Revenge of the Sith, but the writing was fantastic? Like that.
Excellent.
Like, that's what it is. And it like, the whole thing, like, you get to see different characters' points of view, which is cool to get to see like a Darksider's point of view throughout a lot of this. Like, you get to see a lot of Dooku, you get to see a little bit of Grievous, you get to see Palpatine a little bit. But it's just like, the whole thing is like, it's just, you're watching Palpatine groom Anakin this entire time. He starts off at the beginning of the movie, at the beginning of the book, like, very like upbeat and fun, and just kind of like that boyish charm that he has, throughout the Clone Wars. And then, as it kind of progresses, you see him, you experience him diving deeper and deeper into the anger and the hate, and just kind of turning very much inward. And you get a lot of like inner dialogue of what it is like from his point of view to turn to the dark side.
Interesting.
Yeah,
that's cool.
Yeah. And there's a lot of just like really good dialogue. Like, they take like deleted scenes from the movie and they're in the book. Like when, oh shoot, I forgot. But there's like, oh, you get to see like the scenes with Mon Mothma that were deleted scenes from the movie. So Mon Mothma had, so like the beginning of the rebellion happens during the events of like the four main senators that like kind of form the rebellion. You get to see a couple scenes of them meeting. And they also have this whole, apparently there were 2,000 senators that like signed basically like a decree, basically begging Palpatine to revoke his emergency powers. And as soon as he like ascends to the Empire, he kind of treats it as a hit list. And just like these are like enemies of the state, and like it's wild.
Well, that's cool.
Yeah,
man, I want to read this now. It sounds really interesting.
It's good.
The extra
and like
details.
the audiobook version is really good. Because it's I mean, it's just one reader doing all the voices, but it's like an audio drama with like, you get like the John Williams score and stuff. It's odd they don't have music from episode 3, which is kind of weird. Because they have,
maybe it came out before.
I think
maybe the novelization came out before the movie.
It might have come out before the movie, or it came out like while the movie is still like they produced them both simultaneously and didn't have time to hand over the music. So then, because they played Duel of the Fates during the Anakin and Obi-Wan final like lightsaber duel part, like I was like, this is from episode 1. Why am I hearing this now? But it's fine, because like in other Star Wars ones, they have like the right music at the right times and that kind of stuff. So it's cool. I highly recommend it to anyone. I know our cousin Cal, he saw that I posted somewhere that I was reading it, and he's like, dude, this is like one of the best. Or no, he responded to our last episode that we posted, that I said I was starting the book, and he's like, dude, it's like one of the best Star Wars books I've ever read in my life. And Cal, I 100% agree. It's so good. So
oh, cool.
It's very good.
Well, yeah, no, I definitely have to read it. Yeah, that's cool.
But yeah,
that's cool that they have the Mon Mothma stuff in there, because I think Genevieve O'Reilly was like cast for Revenge of the Sith, and they recorded scenes with her, and then she didn't. They cut those scenes, so she didn't end up in the movie. Right. Maybe she was like in the background of a scene or something, but like I don't think she had any speaking.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
But then it was cool that they were able to bring her back later for Rogue One, now Andor and stuff. That was cool. Sort of story there.
Yeah, I love that continuity there with the same, like, it's cool that they have Genevieve Riley in all those, like, it's great. I love it. It's the best. Yeah. I love it.
Best.
Yep.
Is it another Nacho Libre?
Oh yeah, dude, I'm full of Nacho Libre quotes. But yeah, so I finished reading that, and I started reading this other book called The Ministry for the Future. It's a sci-fi novel set like 5 years from now, about climate change, and about this the UN establishes what's called a Ministry for the Future after there's like this huge heat wave that like kills off like 10% of India's population, and like India just kind of like has had enough, and they kind of like I don't know, I'm only like 5% of the way through the audiobook, but they're like they kind of start to like go renegade and take the nuclear option against climate change. And it's like, it's the back of the book kind of like described it as like a hopeful science fiction of what could be our future.
That's cool.
Yeah. And it came out in 2020, and it was actually on like Barack Obama's like top books of 2020 or something.
Of the year list.
Of the year for 2020. Cool. Yeah. So it's like, oh, cool, I'll check that out. I forget where I heard about it, but like, it's so far it's pretty good. It's like pretty dark, but I mean, they're kind of just like, I'm only 5% in, and they're just kind of like setting the stage of like how dire this is, and like they're like really taking like a kind of like a ground level, like how does this affect like the poorest of the poor in the world? How does this kind of like how does this affect them? And then also like a top-down approach as well. Like one of the main characters is the person from the UN in charge of this Ministry for the Future. And so it kind of like plays both sides, and there's like Doctors Without Borders doctors in there that are like in India on the front lines working this like heat wave and stuff. It's really good. I'm liking it so far. Yeah, so reading that, and then Tears of the Kingdom. That's all I'm doing.
Yes. Yeah. Well, that's really all I have to talk about this time too. Is Tears of the Kingdom.
Yes.
So yeah, yeah. So basically, since it came out, since I got it, I picked it up from Best Buy the day of. Actually, me and a few friends went, and because we all like happened to pre-order it from the same Best Buy, and we just all went and got it at the same time. So that was fun, nice little outing. Yeah, I've been basically any free time that I have where I'm not like eating food, I am playing Tears of the Kingdom. You know? Good. It's man. I want to hear what are your. I mean, you're not very far in, but like,
right.
Spoiler free. I think let's talk about it for a little bit, but just like in general terms. So like for you so far, what do you think of it? Are you enjoying it? How do you feel about it in comparison to Breath of the Wild? Things like that.
So,
what are you thinking?
I love it. It's fun.
Mm-hmm.
I might have overhyped it for myself a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sure.
Like, because it's just like, it's like exactly like Breath of the Wild, but like with refreshed graphics and new mechanics and stuff. And I keep like pressing the wrong buttons to activate like what was your Sheikah Slate on like this game's version of your Sheikah Slate. Like it's usually like the L trigger or something, or no, it's like you're up on your like the up on the D-pad to like switch which like thing you're doing, like whether you're doing like magnesis or whatever. This version's game they changed the controls of how you do that, and it's throwing me off big now, time. Yeah. So now it's L, and you're using like your other joystick or whatever. So that's throwing me off, but it's fun. I'm loving it. It's a lot of fun. So like the tutorial of the game takes place up in the sky, which is cool. And then after about it took me like a couple hours to finish through that. I was just taking my time going through that tutorial. Yeah. But once I got down to the ground, there's a couple of times where you get launched up and you can airdrop down. I won't spoil how that happens. But the first time I did that, I was just like, ooh, that's a cool looking open field. And I like glided down into it, and there was a Lionel right there. And it was very scary.
Amazing.
Yeah.
For those of you that don't know, who don't play the Zelda, a Lionel is it's like a centaur, basically, but like super muscly and intimidating, and has like a lion's mane. It's basically like the most powerful like non-boss enemy in the game, and when you encounter one, it just comes after you, and they're terrifying. They're very difficult to beat. So I understand your I had a similar thing happen when I was exploring, and like I like walked in a direction. I was like, oh, I was kind of in a dark area, and I was like, oh, what's that? And I like used my scope to like zoom in, and I saw the Lionel, and it like looked at me, and I was like,
oh no.
Oh no. And so I was like, okay, I'm leaving. Yeah. I started running. I was like, okay, I think I lost it, and then it like just decks me from behind, and I go flying.
Oh man.
So, anyway, So I totally get what you mean by like you kind of feeling you overhyped it for yourself in a way, like because it is very like, I will say I think it gets better because I played.
Because I haven't gotten to any of like the main story part yet, like because like there's a tutorial, and then you kind of like get sent off on your initial mission, and then I think after that initial mission you like start the actual like real story part. I haven't gotten to that yet. I'm still on the initial mission once you hit the ground. So that's probably why I'm like, this game is just like, it's a slow burn to like get started. And I'm sure like everyone I've talked to who like has played more than me has said like it's the best game they've ever played in their life, and I'm like, I'm just not there yet. And it's like, and I only have like maybe an hour or two a day to play it. Just because I have work and other obligations, and I'm a parent, and so yeah. And I've only had it for 3 days, so that's that too. So
indeed,
but I've loved every second I got to play it. But
oh yeah, definitely. So that was kind of my initial impression, was like, I thought that the like opening hour, when they kind of introduced the main gist of the story and introduced kind of some of the new mechanics and concepts, that was all really exciting to me. And then once I got done with the opening tutorial area and got down to the surface, like to regular Hyrule, there was a while where I was like, oh, this is just this is just Hyrule again. This is, I've been here. For a bit, I was like, okay. I mean, I'm enjoying it, but it doesn't feel as like special or as exciting as I was hoping it would. And then I played for a little while longer, and I started discovering other things, new things, and like I would love to talk more with you about it off mic eventually when you see some of this stuff, because there's some new ideas and new areas that like are like I was worried it was going to feel too similar to Breath of the Wild, but now that I've played it for a while, I'm like, oh no, this is amazing. I love this, and there's so much more here that I didn't realize was here. And yeah, so I agree with what you said about it being kind of like a slow burn to start. Like it definitely feels like it takes a while to kind of get its footing and feel like it has momentum and everything. But once you like get past kind of the first few hurdles, you get past the tutorials, you get past kind of getting the story rolling, you'll start to discover more stuff, and it's super cool. I'm way far from completing it, obviously. Like,
yeah,
only had it for a few days. Yeah, I've played it more than you, obviously, but even so, it's like this is a massive game, just like the first game. I think this game's like physically speaking, in terms of like the amount of explorable stuff, it is significantly larger than Breath of the Wild, and Breath of the Wild was already a massive game.
Yeah, that's my impression as well.
Yeah, it's pretty dang amazing, and I've been enjoying it a lot. So
yep. One other thing I noticed, and I don't think this is a spoiler in any way, but just like sure. We were talking earlier, or like last time we talked about how like this is kind of the Majora's Mask to Breath of the Wild being Ocarina of Time, and like in thinking of that, in the beginning of Majora's Mask, there's like, if I remember correctly, there's like a part where you're jumping on lily pads. Like in like part of the, kind of like the opening like tutorial part, and there's a lot of lily pads in the beginning of this game. And I was like, huh, I wonder if that was intentional.
Yeah, it's neat.
So yeah, that was like, ooh, that's kind of cool. Because Zelda, like especially Breath of the Wild, likes to call back to previous games, and there's like all sorts of landmarks that are named after like things that happened in previous games and characters that like make
almost every like location, like a fort or a mountain or wherever. Like most of them have some reference to something from a previous Zelda game, which is cool. Mm-hmm. It's just it's cool how like they are able to kind of pay tribute to a lot of different Zelda games across the whole spectrum without necessarily having to it's a nice little bit of fan service. That's cool. But yeah, I'm enjoying it a lot so far, and I put in at least 250 hours into Breath of the Wild, and I never actually 100%ed it. Like I think I got every, like I went to every shrine. I did every shrine and stuff, and did like obviously all the major main quests and stuff, and a bunch of the side quests. But I never did all the side quests. But I feel like after playing this for a while, like I mean, obviously it remains to be seen, but I feel like I might end up 100% in this game. Like, other than, like, I don't think I'm going to get all the Korok seeds, because that's insane. But
nuts.
The Korok seeds, the Korok seeds are not designed to be able to get all of them. I don't know if do you know what happens in Breath of the Wild if you get every Korok seed?
Doesn't it just be like, hey, you did it, good for you? That's kind of it.
Basically. So, so you get if you collect every Korok seed, and you go to Hestu, he's like, oh, good for you, congratulations, here's a gift. And he gives you a golden poo.
A golden what?
Yes, he gives you a poo.
A poo?
A little pile of poo that's gold. I think it's called Hestu's gift or something. And it's just a little
poop emoji kind of thing? Like,
basically, it just sits in your inventory as like a signifier of, hey, you did it. But it's also, I feel like it's like a, the developers being like, okay, I mean, you weren't really supposed to get all of them, but I mean, good for you, I guess. So it's kind of like poking fun at the player almost.
That's hysterical.
That's amazing. Yeah. But yeah, I am very much looking forward to playing more of this game and talking more about it with you.
Yes. Nice. Jack, anything new happening in Star Wars, in the world of Star Wars?
The only thing I can think of is kind of continuing on the Writers Guild strike, which is still going on.
Yes.
Tony Gilroy, the showrunner for Andor, and I think lead writer, one of the the lead writers at least, has recently stopped all like work on the show. Like he stopped writing for it for a while ago, but he also has stopped all of his producing duties and stuff, and he's like stepped away and been like, yeah, I'm not going to be doing anything on Andor until until the strike is over and the writers get paid their fair share,
as they should,
which is cool. Like, so if there are any Hollywood executives out there that are fans of Andor, maybe you should pay your writers better, and then you'll get the next season faster. Just a thought for all of you Hollywood billionaire executives who are listening to our podcast.
Pay writers what they're worth. Give them their proper residuals from streaming. Yeah, and maybe don't use AI. That'd be great.
Yes. Yeah. So I obviously still looking forward to Andor season 2. This will probably delay it a bit, but you know what? It's
fine.
Obviously worth it.
Yeah.
Like. Yeah,
we have unlimited content. We'll be okay.
We have unlimited content. Yeah,
we will get to Andor season 2 when Andor season 2 is ready to get to us, and that's fine with me.
And props to Tony Gilroy for sticking to his guns on this. Yeah, that's cool.
Do we know if it's going to delay Ahsoka at all? Because Ahsoka's in post production, right?
Yeah, Ahsoka would be in post production because it's
comes out in like 2 months.
It's already been shot and everything, so I don't think there's any reason why it would be delayed. Yeah,
great, fun.
That should be fine.
Yeah. So that's that.
Indeed.
Any things we need to get to from last week, unfinished business?
I don't think so. Do you have anything you wanted to say?
No, dude.
Any just like any thoughts in your mind you wanted to share with the people apropos of nothing?
I mean, no.
Okay, cool. Well, with that, let's go on to our main segment.
We're leaving that part in, right?
All right. Obviously.
Nice. Yes. Dope. All right. Yeah, you guys have to deal with us. Cool. Our super professional podcast.
Yes, professionals right here. With that, we will move on to our main segment where we'll be discussing the Star Wars The Clone Wars theatrical film.
Ooh.
We need to make contact with General Kenobi.
Kidnapped, Jabba the Hutt's son has been. Negotiate the treaty with Jabba. Obi-Wan will. Find the renegades that hold Jabba's son. Your mission will be Skywalker.
Red light, stand by.
Soon the Jedi will not only be at war with you, Count, but the Hutt clan as well.
They have nowhere to run.
Fall back! You're in trouble!
Sam, where in the timeline does this film take place?
22 BBY, as the last 6 things have taken place.
Yeah, so this is basically the plot of this is
we're still on Christophsis.
Yeah. But yeah, it is a continuation of the Christophsis storyline, basically, is how it starts. Yeah, Sam, do you want to walk us through a basic timeline of this episode? Or actually, do you want to do the
I have to do the Wikipedia thing. I gotta do the intro. Oh man, I also have to get myself all ready for this because it's a whole thing.
Sit up, gotta crack your knuckles, clear your throat, get ready.
There we go. A galaxy divided, striking swiftly after the Battle of Geonosis. Count Dooku's droid army has seized control of major hyperspace lanes, separating the Republic from the majority of its clone army. With few clones available, the Jedi generals cannot gain a foothold on the Outer Rim as more and more planets choose to join Dooku's separatists. While the Jedi are occupied fighting a war, no one is left to keep the peace. Chaos and crime spread, and the innocent become victims in a lawless galaxy. Crime lord Jabba the Hutt's son has been kidnapped by a rival band of pirates. Desperate to save his son, Jabba puts out a call for help. A call the Jedi are cautious to answer.
Dun, dun, dun.
Dun, dun, dun. Gosh, it's like doing that voice and like just kind of like reading that cold. I don't like read this beforehand. I just like pull it up and start reading. It's a lot. So I trip over my words a lot. So you good people just have to deal with it.
Yeah. Maybe one of these days I'll try my hand at the impression. The Admiral Yularen impression.
Admiral Wolf Yularen.
Wolf. What a good name.
Great name.
Right, do you want to give us a basic rundown of the story of this situation?
Yeah, so the synopsis is... Oh, it's not that long. Okay, I'll just read through the synopsis. So the film begins with a narrator explaining the state of the Clone Wars. The Separatists control the majority of the hyperlanes, leaving the Republic forces stranded in different parts of the Outer Rim. An octopus-like craft heads for Tatooine, which that spaceship, super cool, by the way. That was the coolest ship we've seen so far. An octopus-like craft heads for Tatooine to capture Jabba the Hutt's son, Rata, as part of a plan to make the Hutts join the Clone Wars. Meanwhile, a fierce...
Did we know his name? Did they mention his name at all in the episode?
I don't think they did. No.
That must be something we learned later in another episode.
It must be, because they just call him Stinky the whole time.
They just call him Stinky.
Which is hilarious.
Anyway, yeah.
So meanwhile, a fierce battle is taking place on the crystalline planet of Christophsis between the Republic's very limited clone army and the Retail Caucus forces. Retail Caucus forces? Is it just the Trade Federation? What's the Retail Caucus?
What is the Retail?
That's what it's called.
That's amazing.
Okay, yeah, all right.
The strip mall forces.
Going to dive on this. Retail Caucus was a corporate entity that existed in the final years of the Galactic Republic. It was based on the planet Kirkodia, a wealthy but smaller organization that competed with the likes of the Commerce Guild and the Corporate Alliance. The Caucus was one of the myriad corporate entities attracted to the command structure of the Confederacy of Independent Systems by Count Dooku's promises of unlimited pursuit of profits. Like its fellow corporations, the Retail Caucus reinforced the Confederacy's growing military with its private droid army, which includes LR-57 combat retail droids.
The Retail Caucus.
I just thought it was the Trade Federation because they're the ones with the battle droids, but apparently the Retail Caucus is something else.
Retail Caucus sounds like a poor Google Translate version of the Trade Federation.
It does.
It's like they translated to Japanese and back to English. It's amazing.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so that's kind of setting the scene. That first paragraph of the synopsis was basically just the opening scroll thing. So, with the help of Obi-Wan Kenobi, Anakin Skywalker, Rex, and Cody, the clones steadily advance on the Separatist forces, gaining the Republic an early victory. This victory doesn't last long, though, as a droid army under General Loathsome, hilarious, soon...
Amazing.
I love Star Wars villain names, because they are just, so on the nose, and it's the best.
Amazing. It's excellent. I love it.
It's one of my favorite things about Star Wars.
General Loathsome and Savage Oppress, and, incredible.
So good. All right. General Loathsome soon returns for more bloodshed. With no communications or the ability to fly in reinforcements, the fate of the few remaining clone soldiers are in the hands of Obi-Wan and Anakin. A shuttle soon comes with an important delivery. Thinking it's reinforcements, the Jedi go to investigate, only to find a young Padawan named Ahsoka Tano. Ahsoka! Who insists that she has been sent by Master Yoda to serve as Anakin's Padawan. Which they had kind of... sidebar, they had been Anakin and Obi-Wan had been talking about that Obi-Wan is expecting to get a new Padawan now that Anakin is a Jedi Knight. And Obi-Wan was kind of just gently ribbing Anakin, you would make a good teacher, you should take a Padawan. And Anakin's like, no way in hell am I doing that. It's only going to hold me back.
And then 5 minutes later.
And then the immediate next scene, Ahsoka shows up and she's the most, this is peak obnoxious Ahsoka. She gets more and more normal and mature and reasonable, but she's just trying to be a show off and trying to be a teacher's pet all at the same time.
Yes, this is young Ahsoka, Sass Master Ahsoka.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Snippy Ahsoka, or Snips, as Anakin calls her. Which he comes up with a pet name for her immediately, which is great.
I love how there's one moment where he says he says don't get snippy with me, and then from then on for the next 7 seasons he calls her Snips.
Yeah.
Because of that one moment.
Yep.
It's excellent.
Yes. All right, so Ahsoka Tano, who insists that she has been sent by Master Yoda to serve as Anakin's Padawan. The battle resumes, with Separatist forces advancing behind an expanding shield, which the Republic's artillery is unable to penetrate. Tasked with taking down the deflector shield, Anakin and Ahsoka succeed in penetrating enemy lines, using all their stealth, cunning, and ability to improvise, while Obi-Wan stalls for time, holding a fake surrender negotiation with Loathsome, which isn't a fake surrender, like, technically a war crime.
I was gonna think, I was like,
I think this is the first war crime we see. Is like,
I literally during that scene, I was like, is that a war crime? So I Googled it, and I couldn't find anything in like the Geneva Conventions after like skimming it.
Yeah.
But like, surely that's a war crime, right? Surely that's like, you can't do that.
It's like contrary to like, I feel like at least like what's traditionally accepted as like acceptable warfare tactics. It's like,
but also
at least a lowbrow move.
Yes, but also, I mean, it's war. Like,
sure.
The idea of war crimes is almost kind of silly to me, because it's like, yeah, to quote The West Wing, all wars are crimes, right?
Yes.
Like,
oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah, you know. But yes, that I love. Yeah, a couple things. I love that scene because it is a perfect example of Obi-Wan putting on the charm and being sassy and like. It's excellent. I love how immediately, like, General Loathsome is like, no Jedi tricks, no funny business, and Obi-Wan's like, no, of course not. And then he immediately falls for it.
Yeah, he like immediately does a Jedi mind trick, like, or like at least like just, I don't even know if he needs one. He just like talks him into it. Yeah,
I don't think he needed a Jedi mind trick for this, and he was just being his usual like charming self, and was like, no, let's negotiate the surrender. Hey, do you want some tea? You want a drink? Let's sit down, let's chat. And man, you're great.
He like force like levitates like some rubble that perfectly like is like a conference table and two chairs. Yeah, like, they're just rocks shaped like a conference table and two chairs, but it's excellent. It's great.
Yeah, so that's a great scene. And then what was the other thing that just happened right before that? Oh, right, they got under the the ray shields by Metal Gear Soliding their way underneath in a box. Like,
I was thinking of Pirates of the Caribbean when they're in like the upside down boat.
With the boat.
Yeah.
Yes, that too.
Yeah. So Anakin and Ahsoka are just hiding underneath this like large box, and the droids just like they trip on it and then start walking around it and don't even like there's a box here. We'll just keep walking by, and like Anakin and Ahsoka are just like talking at like normal volume, like underneath this box, and no one notices.
Yes, it's amazing. There's so many good, like, one of the things I love about the Clone Wars is how much they decide to go silly with the battle droids. Like, they were kind of silly in the movies, but I feel like in the Clone Wars they like really play up the kind of the humor and the slapstick of these guys. It's excellent. Like, I know some people are like not into it because of how silly it is, but I think it's super fun. Yeah, I love it.
I like it because it's silly.
Exactly. Yeah. There's one moment later on that I love. That's just like going with that. There's a moment when Rex and like I think one other clone are like facing off against a bunch of battle droids, and they're basically surrounded. And Rex yells, "We've got you outnumbered!" And one of the droids is like, "What? What do you mean?" And then he starts counting the droids and he goes, 1, 2, 3, and then a ship comes in and blows them all up. Yeah. I love that moment of like Rex just, you know, it's like the classic Star Trek episode where he like they what's that episode where like he says something like, "This statement is false" or something, and it causes a robot to like short circuit or something. Like, no. Anyway, yeah, I just I thought that was funny that like, A, we got a cool Rex moment there, and B, we got a funny battle droids moment.
Yeah, I love it.
Anyway,
I love it. We did, I think, I don't remember. It doesn't say it in this. We missed a Wilhelm scream. There was one Wilhelm scream at the beginning of, I think one of the clones like got their hand shot off, and we heard kind of like a muffled Wilhelm scream. There was at least,
I feel like, so I didn't notice any Wilhelm screams,
or at least in the style of Wilhelm scream.
So I didn't notice any Wilhelm screams like while I was like I wasn't really actively paying attention to it exactly because I was kind of, I'm tired today. Sure. But I did hear one early on that there was a clone, but I think it sounded like somebody doing like an impression of the Wilhelm scream more than it was like an actual Wilhelm scream sound effect. But
do we count that?
But
because it definitely sounded like a, at the very least, an homage to Wilhelm scream, if not like a distorted one.
Sure, yeah. No, I will. I'll look it up online. I'm pretty sure Wikipedia has an actual page of like, here's all the Wilhelm screams and all the things.
Sensational.
So I will look that up and hopefully find that out. But
great.
Yeah.
Anyway, shall we move on?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. So Obi-Wan just stalled by doing a fake surrender with generalism. Soon after the final victory for the Republic on Christophsis, Master Yoda arrives with the urgent message that a mysterious group of renegades has kidnapped Jabba's son, and it's up to Anakin, Ahsoka, Rex, and the clones to rescue him and bring him back home safely. Obi-Wan flies to Tatooine to assure Jabba that Rada will be returned safely and secure a promise by the Hutts to use their trading routes for safe passage within the Outer Rim. After briefing in a Republic flagship, Anakin's forces descend through the clouds of the jungle planet of Teth for one of the many natural stone pillars which litter the landscape. Under heavy fire, Anakin, Ahsoka, and Rex storm the monastery atop the pillar to find Rada, who has gotten sick, only to be caught in an elaborate trap. Count Dooku has staged the kidnapping himself in order to blacklist the Jedi among the Hutts. First, he has the Jedi retrieve the young Hutt to secure fake evidence, and then Asajj Ventress, as the overseer of the operation, is charged with either retrieving or killing the young Huttlet. Which I love that they call it a Huttlet the entire time.
Yeah, it's adorable.
Yeah, a Huttlet. It is adorable.
Sounds like a delicious treat.
It is a delicious treat.
Let's get some Hutlets before, as an appetizer.
A yummy, stinky treat.
Stinky and yummy.
Stinky. Yep. So, this whole like them trying to like rescue Jabba the Hutt's son is just like they're kind of like, it's Dooku playing both sides. He's like, he kidnapped Jabba's son, and then framed the Jedi for it, and then tried to like kill the Jedi while they were trying to rescue the son that Dooku had kidnapped. And it's a lot of like double treachery and that kind of thing. It's like, which is the way of the Sith, and this is like, it's kind of like a microcosm of the whole like prequel trilogy, the Clone War thing. Is like, this is that's what both sides, that's what Dooku and Palpatine are doing with the Separatists and the Republic. The entire Clone Wars is just on a smaller scale, Jedi versus Separatists, who's gonna like save the little Hutt, when it was really just Dooku doing the whole thing, puppet mastering behind the scenes the entire time. Yep, and surprise, surprise, it doesn't exactly work out the way he planned. Well, so moving on. While quarreling all the while about the proper procedure, yet slowly gaining respect for one another, Anakin and Ahsoka managed to escape the trap along with R2-D2 and hijack a derelict transport, which they used to travel to Tatooine. Ahsoka uses medicine on board to treat the sick Huttlet. Obi-Wan, alerted by Anakin, arrives just in time to relieve Rex and the rest of his forces and engages Ventress in combat, where he manages to defeat her, though Ventress flees in the face of capture. In the meantime, Senator Amidala learns of Anakin's mission. Worried about him, she decides to contact Jabba's uncle, Zero the Hutt, who lives in a shady part of Coruscant. Which Zero the Hutt is an absurd character that we see a bunch in the Clone Wars. Jack, how would you describe Zero the Hutt?
He's a gangster with a very particular way of speaking. I think he's supposed to sound like Truman Capote, I believe.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, he's very kind of like silly and like slimy and selfish and very like, he's like he talks a big talk, but then when he's put into a corner, he immediately becomes cowardly.
Yeah.
That kind of character.
And he's a
big old purple Jabba the Hutt with like a lisp, basically.
With a lisp and like face tattoos.
Yeah.
And like lives in like a speakeasy. Like that's his hideout, is a speakeasy on Coruscant.
Yeah.
Yeah, very, very silly character. He's also, I think, the only Hutt that speaks Basic and doesn't just speak
Huttese. I don't think we ever
full-time.
hear any other Hutts speak non-Huttese. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, because I mean, he definitely he speaks Huttese when he's speaking to Jabba the Hutt, and we don't get subtitles, but you can tell that Jabba's just chewing him out. But he's the only one that like speaks Basic, which is just Star Wars for English. But England doesn't exist in Star Wars, so it's Basic. So, yep. All right.
It's from Basic Land.
Yep, from Basic Land. That's right. So, where are we at? Here we are. So, the Hutt strangely refuses to cooperate, and soon Padme finds out why. Zero has actually conspired with Dooku to engineer the downfall of his nephew to seize power over the Hutt clans for himself. Padme is discovered and detained, but a chance call by C-3PO enables her to summon help, and Zero is soon arrested by the Coruscant Guard. Upon arrival on Tatooine, Anakin and Ahsoka are attacked by Magna Guards, which Magna Guards are like the robots that General Grievous has in Episode 3.
They've got the electro stick thing.
Yeah, and they're like tall battle droids with capes, and they got the purple sticks.
They are cool looking.
They are very cool. They're very cool. Faced with a long way across the desert sands and relentless opponents, Anakin devises a ruse. When Dooku corners Anakin, the pack he is carrying, which allegedly has the baby Hutt, is revealed to contain merely rocks. And Ahsoka and R2-D2 travel with Rata to Jabba's palace unmolested, but just as they near it, Ahsoka is ambushed by 3 Magna Guards, whom she narrowly defeats. But as Anakin and Ahsoka enter the palace one after another, they are threatened with execution by Jabba's men, even though Rata is safely returned. Padme calls just in time to convince Jabba of his uncle's duplicity, while Anakin and Ahsoka are triumphantly retrieved by Obi-Wan, Yoda, Cody, and the clones. And that, my friends, is the movie. That's it.
Yay!
That's the whole thing. So yeah. Jack, did you have a favorite part of this movie? What was your favorite part?
Good question. And this movie's kind of all over the place, isn't it?
It's super all over the place.
Yeah. So for a little background, this was if you hadn't noticed, this movie is basically just an arc of the Clone Wars that they condensed together into a movie and released theatrically. This was...
And it very much felt that way. It very much felt like 3 episodes of television played back to back.
Yeah.
Without like
it
credits.
did not. Yeah, it did not feel like one big movie with like one character arc or one story arc. You know.
Yeah. It's very much just 3 episodes of television.
But it definitely doesn't feel like it should have been. Like it was received not well critically, and I think there are a few reasons for that. One is that like just visually, this movie doesn't look amazing compared to most of its like contemporaries in terms of like theatrically released animated movies. Like for reference, this movie came out the same year that WALL-E did, and like think about how WALL-E looks and compare that to how this movie looks, and it's man, yeah, you know. But like you can't like to an extent you really can't blame them because this is like I think this is one of Lucasfilm Animation's like first things that they were doing, so they were pretty like early days and they didn't have a lot of experience in the same way that like Pixar had this pedigree behind it already, for example. And also they were making this for television, not for theaters, and yet they released it in theaters, so it's like so you got to give them credit where credit's due, obviously. But I
mean, watching it on Disney Plus, like this is fine, but like I would not put it in the same camp as WALL-E or like Shrek,
exactly,
or something.
Like visually speaking, like I mean, there are definitely some beautiful shots in this movie. Like there's a moment kind of near the end when they're on Tatooine and Ahsoka and Anakin are talking right before they like kind of split up, and there's a shot of them like silhouetted against the sun that's really beautiful. I also think there's a lot of great like backgrounds, like kind of painted backgrounds that they use, like for cloudscapes and stuff. They're really beautiful. And there's also some scenes where they use like a lot of kind of dark shadows and stuff, and like really interesting lighting in ways that you don't typically see in the rest of the Clone Wars series for the most part, at least not until the later ones. So there are ways in which I think this movie feels sort of more cinematic than a lot of the Clone Wars episodes that we get later.
Sure.
But I think overall it definitely feels like early CG.
It definitely it looks like a smoothed out N64 game. Is kind of what it is. Kind of the vibe sometimes.
Yeah, there are moments. Yeah, the animations at this point are very stiff and like stilted and like, especially during like the lightsaber fights, it's very like kind of, darting from one pose to another rather than being sort of more flowy, which like that's I think partially a stylistic choice, but also it feels sort of unfinished, especially compared to like later seasons of the show. There are moments when I was like, this looks like either a PS2 video game cutscene or like an episode of VeggieTales. It's just very like
it does give VeggieTales. Yeah.
Yeah, there are moments when it's like it looks like like you can tell that it's CG. It's like,
yeah.
Oh, this feels like this is in animatic phase and not in like ready to be released into the theaters phase. Yeah. Which again, like, I don't blame them for like, this movie does a lot well, especially considering how like this was essentially a pilot episode for a television show.
Yeah.
With a giant budget and a team who had a lot of pressure on them, I'm sure. And
yeah,
so it's like there's a lot to admire about this regardless.
For sure.
I pulled up the Wikipedia article just out of curiosity to kind of, get kind of the story together about how this came through. But like, I'll also read a little bit from the Wikipedia article about the development of this thing. It says, Star Wars The Clone Wars was designed to serve as both a standalone story and a lead-in to the weekly animated TV series of the same name. George Lucas had the idea for a film after viewing some of the already completed footage on the big screen. Warner Bros. Had tracked the series' development from the beginning, and Lucas decided on a theatrical launch after viewing some footage, and decided, quote, "This is so beautiful, why don't we just go and use the crew and make a feature?" End quote. Lucas described the film as almost an afterthought.
Oops.
And then it says, Howard Rothman, president of Lucas Licensing, said of the decision, quote, "Sometimes George works in strange ways."
Oh, man.
So, yeah, it's definitely a very, like, they were not prepared to, like, release this in the theaters initially. George was just like, yeah, let's just throw it, this seems cool, let's do that.
Yeah.
But yeah, anyway, so you asked what my favorite part was. That's where this started.
I did.
I think that my favorite part of this is honestly, like, I think that it's the main reason to watch this movie, which is to see the beginnings of the relationship between Anakin and Ahsoka.
For sure.
I like seeing it happens very quickly, but I like the fact that we get to see, their relationship evolve from Anakin wanting nothing to do with her and being very annoyed with her to being like, you know what, I think I'm warming up to this, and I actually think I like the idea of being a teacher. And yeah, so it's cool to get to see the beginnings of this relationship that ends up being largely the crux of this show, of this series.
Right.
Yeah, so I would say that's probably my favorite part of it. What about you, Sam?
On a much less serious note, I think my favorite little thing from this, there was like a stretch of scenes where, because like Ahsoka had been carrying the baby head, we'll call him Stinky because that's what Ahsoka calls him.
Stinky.
Ahsoka had been carrying Stinky like for most of the episode, and then when they get close to like finding a ship, I think she just gets tired of carrying him, and like she's been carrying him in a backpack, and she just straps the backpack to R2-D2. And R2-D2 kind of just becomes like an automated stroller. And I thought that was hilarious.
I loved that. I loved seeing that. I was like, oh, R2's walking around with the baby-Björn on his chest. That was excellent. That was amazing.
My, like, aside from, like, obviously, yes, like, objectively, the reason to watch this is to, like, see Anakin meet Ahsoka and, like, the beginning of the relationship. But that was, like, I love dumb, funny Star Wars. And that was like peak dumb funny Star Wars. Absolutely. Other than like the battle droid counting 1, 2, 3 and getting blown up. Yeah.
That was amazing.
Yeah. Peak like Clone Wars is like where I go for peak dumb funny Star Wars. And like it's great. I love it. It's good.
It is.
Like, there's great storytelling, but then just like jokes written for 7-year-olds. And I'm a 7-year-old at heart. So it's great.
Aren't we all? Only the best of us are. Yeah. Agreed. Yes, I love that. One of the things I wanted to mention is, interestingly, this is the one. First of all, this is the first thing of the Clone Wars that people got to see, and interestingly, because they decided to release it theatrically, I'll read from the Wikipedia article. When it was decided to produce the film, Lucasfilm contacted all the major film Star Wars actors to see who was interested in voicing their characters for the Clone Wars. In the end, Anthony Daniels, Matthew Wood, who is the droids, I believe, Christopher Lee, and Samuel L. Jackson returned to voice their respective characters. So this is the only instance in the Clone Wars when Samuel L. Jackson and Christopher Lee reprised their roles in animation.
I thought that sounded like Christopher Lee. I was like, I couldn't remember like what Clone Wars Dooku sounds like, but it was like that sounds like Christopher Lee. But like, there's no way they got him for this.
Wow, this is actually doing a good job of sounding like Christopher Lee.
It's like, oh, because it's Christopher Lee. That's beautiful. And I thought it was Samuel L. Jackson too, but that's awesome. Who was it was Matthew Wood. Who's Matthew Wood?
He plays the battle droids, I believe.
Oh, okay. Great.
Yeah.
Nice. Jack, who do you think is or do you have something else?
I was reading through Matthew Wood's Wikipedia article. It says, so he's a supervising sound editor or was at least at one point at Skywalker Sound. He created the Geonosian language. That's cool.
Wow.
He voiced the battle droids in Attack of the Clones and the Clone Wars. He's also the voice of General Grievous.
Oh,
so that's cool.
That is cool. I like that.
Anyway, Matthew Wood. Shout out to him.
Thanks, Matthew Wood.
Thanks, Matthew Wood. You seem cool.
Nice. Jack, did you have an MVP for this episode?
It's got to be Stinky. No.
Oh, come on.
Stinky, who sat around and cried and almost died.
Died. Oops.
I guess, I don't know, Ahsoka, I guess, because I don't know, she came into her own a little bit. There are moments when she's like, she makes some mistakes, but she learns, and we get to see kind of the beginnings of Ahsoka, like when at the beginning of this movie she comes in, she's very kind of like bold and arrogant. She's a kid who's like, doing her first kind of big job, and she's like, she wants to be impressive, and so she's being cocky about it. And then she messes up a couple times, but then she kind of learns a bit of humility, and at the same time Anakin learns a little bit of humility. They balance each other out a little bit. They're good partners in that way.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it was just cool to see Ahsoka like in the beginnings of her time as a Padawan and get to kind of mature and come into her own at least a little bit,
Yeah.
So I guess Ahsoka.
Sweet.
My only other like thought would be maybe Rex, just because Rex is great, and he does. He seems like he's doing a great job the whole time.
Yep.
I feel like every opportunity I get to give Rex MVP, I'm just gonna be like, you know what, Rex should get MVP because Rex is great.
Yeah.
I love Rex. Anyway,
I want to say C-3PO.
Oh yeah, no, that's
C-3PO called like phoning in while Padme was in the dungeon, and so C-3PO and Padme kind of. But I want to give it to C-3PO just because C-3PO was to this movie what that one random rat in the storage unit was to Ant-Man in Endgame.
Yeah, C-3PO accidentally saved the world.
Yes,
accidentally saves Padme and saves, allows the agreement to go through with the Hutts.
So that the Republic can use those hyperspace lanes.
Yeah, it's all down to C-3PO. If C-3PO hadn't called at that specific times, it's like, C-3PO accidentally saves the day in the same way that Jar Jar accidentally ruins everything for everybody by granting emergency powers to the Chancellor. That's a reasonable MVP.
Okay,
that's good.
I also wanted to give it to BabyBjörn R2-D2, but
yes,
that might make good cover art.
Yes, definitely.
I'll see if I can find a picture of that.
I think that's a good idea.
Yeah.
Oh, by the way, I did look up Zero the Hutt on Wikipedia, and I was correct in what I remembered about that. It said George Lucas stepped in and specifically asked for Zero to sound like Truman Capote.
Nice.
So
that was George Lucas's idea. Okay.
Yeah. There we go.
That's hilarious that like George Lucas, who like came up with Jabba the Hutt and Huttese and all that, just like, you know what? Make Truman Capote
Let's
a
make
Hutt.
him sound completely different.
Yeah. Oh man. Well, we've kind of already said how this makes it better Star Wars. This episode really just introduces us to Ahsoka within the context of Clone Wars. We've already we met infant Ahsoka, now we get Padawan Ahsoka. Get to meet their relationship, and Ahsoka is arguably like the most important character in new Star Wars.
Yeah. No, yeah.
At least in the Filoniverse, for sure, she's the most important character.
Yeah, no, definitely.
Yeah.
It's also interesting to think back to like you know, imagining, you know, what it was like back in 2008 when people first saw this movie and knew that this series was happening, and learning that Anakin was getting a Padawan and that it was going to be this young girl, and then they see this movie and she's kind of sassy and like, you know, I get why there was a kind of backlash against her from the beginning.
Yeah.
Like pretty like infamously, like people did not receive Ahsoka well at the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
But then just as the Clone Wars went on and the show got better and the writing got better, we learned more about Ahsoka, and she just eventually became this integral part of the Star Wars universe, and people really grew to love her, and now she's one of the most beloved characters in Star Wars. So like, that's just a cool kind of arc there. Like, you know, I imagine it couldn't have been easy at the beginning, especially for like Ashley Eckstein to be coming into this fandom and into this universe and voicing a character who is so like pretty much universally like maybe hated, but just like disliked. Or like people found her annoying for a while, and like, but just to know that it got better, and now like, man, everybody loves Ahsoka. So it's amazing.
Ahsoka is the best, and
we have this film to thank for it.
Yeah, so we do. Yeah, I'd say Ahsoka is probably like my favorite Jedi, like or at least my favorite Force user in Star Wars is Ahsoka. Just in terms of like,
I love
like who she is as a like. How principled she is as an individual, and just like how compassionate and I don't know. She's also just like one of the most fun characters to watch in all of Star Wars.
Yes, yeah, she's fun, and she's also like, she's what you would hope a Jedi would be.
Right.
At least eventually she is. You know, that's what she grows into. Is like you said, she's compassionate and she has convictions that she sticks to, and like eventually when, you know, in one of my favorite like pieces of television ever is the arc at the end of season 5 when Ahsoka is banished from the Order and then invited back in, and she decides not to come back.
Mm-hmm.
Like that to me is it's an interesting, like, I don't think this is part of the purpose of Ahsoka's character largely, but like the fact that we get to see Anakin and Ahsoka respond to their frustrations with the Order in different ways.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you know, obviously Anakin, you know, gives into the dark side and goes full Sith and murders a bunch of people.
Yeah.
And Ahsoka also has frustrations with the Order and, you know, decides like, you know what, maybe I just need to take a break from this. Maybe this isn't what I thought it was. And, you know, rather than, you know, lashing out, she decides to go and figure things out for herself and be like, you know, what do I like? She sticks to her convictions regardless, you know?
Yeah.
So I agree. I think Ahsoka's a great character, and
I think
for this character.
Yeah. And I think Ahsoka is also kind of like, what if Qui-Gon hadn't died? Like, I think that like Qui-Gon was probably going to become a similar kind of Jedi to Ahsoka.
They both have like, they're both very like wise and principled and are willing to kind of bend the rules for the sake of their principles and what they believe to be right. You know, they're not afraid to be like to stand up against the institution and be like, I think you're messing this up. This isn't correct. Like,
right.
Yeah.
They're obedient to the institution when the institution is fine, doing good, but but they're not afraid to call out the corruption in the institution itself and to even distance themselves from the institution. I don't think Qui-Gon never got that far, but I imagine if Qui-Gon had been around in the Clone Wars, he definitely would have, I think.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's a kind of a recurring thing we get throughout the Clone Wars, is we see a lot of different responses to the corruption or the flaws of the Jedi Order, and how people decide to respond to that. There's people like Ahsoka, who decides to kind of just leave peacefully and figure things out for herself and live according to her principles and basically be a Jedi, but just outside the Order.
Yeah.
And then there's Anakin, who goes full Sith, so that's fun.
Super fun.
And we see also like Obi-Wan, we get hints of him being I think at one point in the Clone Wars when he's talking to Satine, he's like, if you had said the word, I would have left the Jedi Order to be with you. Yeah. That kind of thing. So even Obi-Wan, who we see is kind of he's sassy and he bends the rules too, but we see him as he mostly follows the rules and follows at least in the Anakin Obi-Wan dynamic, he's the one who follows the rules the most and is no, we have to do what the Jedi Council says, kind of thing. Yeah. But even he's not perfect or doesn't see the his place in the Jedi Order as a perfect situation, Yeah. And then of course we get people like General Krell, who
the literal worst.
Yeah, the literal worst, who just decides to take advantage of the situation for the sake of creating chaos, essentially. He just wants to watch the world burn, basically. He's you know what, the Jedi are corrupt and this war is terrible and you know what, screw it all, let's just kill each other. Yeah. Anyway, so I think that's one of the strengths and one of the kind of recurring interesting aspects of the Clone Wars, is getting to see all the different ways in which people respond to corruption, respond to the need for change. Yeah.
Yep. I love it. Star Wars. More Star Wars is better Star Wars.
Agreed.
And I love just how everything is tied together, and I don't know, there's definitely the more you watch Star Wars, the more you realize that there is a cohesive philosophy behind what's going on. And that's just a testament to the world building of George Lucas and Dave Filoni after him, of just how
definitely.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just, I love it. Love Star Wars.
Agreed, 100%.
Yep.
I do like Star Wars. We should start a podcast about it. I think that'd be a good idea.
There's so much content to talk about with Star Wars. We would never run out.
Almost I wouldn't even say it's limited at all. I would say maybe it's,
dare say, it's unlimited. Whoa. Oh man. Jack, any closing thoughts about this movie of Star Wars?
I don't think so, except this isn't all related to the movie, but if you hadn't noticed, guys, Sam made a cool new logo for our podcast.
Oh yeah.
The cover art for our podcast is updated, and the logo looks super cool. It's got this font that looks kind of like Arabesh, and it's neat. I like it. Did a good job on that.
Thanks, Jack. Yeah, this would probably be the third episode that we see this new cover art, but the first one since me designing it that you get to see the new cover art, because we are recording. We will release the episode the week after we record it, is kind of how it goes. So you hear episodes basically 2 weeks after we record it, is kind of how it works.
Yeah. So so today's Monday. So in a couple days, we'll be releasing the episode that we recorded last week, basically, yes. Which is better for me because I feel like it puts less pressure on me to be I have 2 days to edit this thing and I have to get it out right away, kind of thing.
Yes.
Whereas now it's I have a week to get through this if I want to.
Correct.
So
yep,
that's been helpful.
And we appreciate all that you do, Jack, for the editing of the podcast. It is so much work.
Oh, thank you.
I don't know if I could do it. I wish I would help if I could, but I can't. Which is why I do the album art, and I usually type up the script and stuff. But I do what I can.
Yeah, you do plenty. It's great, and I'm also getting better at being more efficient with the editing process. I've gotten to a point where I can get through it more quickly than I could before. So I'm also like trying to be less perfectionist about it.
For sure.
And be like, you know what, this is something we're doing for fun. It doesn't have to be amazing.
Yes.
You know, so.
Although it is amazing because it's us, Jack, and we're amazing.
Yeah, that it is. We're amazing.
We are. Amazing.
We have unlimited amazingness between the two of us.
Unlimited charm and handsomeness and all you can want.
I guess you're right.
I know.
Yeah, I'll take that.
Yes.
All right. Thank you all for joining us.
What are we talking about next week, Jack?
Next week, we're getting back into the Clone Wars television series.
Classic.
We're jumping forward to season 3, actually. Season 3, episode 1, Clone Cadets, which that's a great episode. I'm excited to.
I think I remember that one.
See what's going on.
That was a good one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, it'll be a good one.
This one, yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah, so I'm excited to talk about that one, and then after that, we'll actually be doing another Tales of the Jedi episode.
Wait, really?
We're getting
already?
We're gonna be watching Practice Makes Perfect, which is the one with Ahsoka, with Anakin training Ahsoka, which is interesting. The fact that we're getting this so early on, like, I guess I forgot that episode of Tales of the Jedi takes place so early on in the Clone Wars.
Yeah,
so
that's a really good episode of Tales of the Jedi. I'm excited. We get to watch that in 2 weeks. Heck yeah!
Agreed. And then after that, we have like months of just the Clone Wars. So
yeah, and it's basically just kind of in order from there on out. Like we're watching just season 1, like cover to cover, basically.
Yeah, for the most part. Yeah, it jumps around a little bit. Like so like there's one that's like an arc where it's like season 3 episode 8, then season 1 episode 22, and then season 3 episode 9.
Oh yeah, I'm seeing that. That's not until like Thanksgiving.
For the most part, it'll be it'll be a while.
Yeah,
but yeah, for the most part, we'll be watching things in order of how they're listed on Disney Plus and whatnot. So speaking of which, was it hard for you to find Star Wars: The Clone Wars on Disney Plus?
Which
is weird.
I basically just had to go into the search bar, and that's the only way I could find it.
Same, yeah. I was like, surely this will be easy to find. Like, I thought it would be like in my like suggestions on the homepage, and I was like, oh, it's not there. Okay, then I guess I'll go to I like scrolled down, and I found like Star Wars in chronological order, and it had everything except the Clone Wars movie. It had the Clone Wars series, but they didn't include the movie in there.
Oops.
So I was like, okay. So then I went to the Star Wars like homepage area, and I scrolled through that whole thing and didn't find the movie. I was like, so then I just ultimately had to search for it. I was like, they really don't want us watching this movie.
Apparently.
Dang. The heck?
Yeah. What the heck?
It's not that bad. Like, geez.
Yeah.
Anyway. Thanks for joining me again, Sam. This was fun, as usual. I always enjoy our chats.
Yes. So good.
Yeah.
By the time you hear us next, we will have gotten a lot further through Tears of the Kingdom, most likely. So we'll probably hear more of that next week.
Indeed.
Yeah. We love Zelda.
That's all we do is we unlimited love.
Unlimited love
here on
Zelda
Unlimited Content.
Yes.
I am going to go play some more Zelda, I think.
I'm going to go say hi to my wife and then play more Zelda. That's probably what I'm going to do.
Excellent. I will not say hi to my wife because I don't have one.
Should work on that. Come on, Jack.
I have Zelda, so that's probably enough.
All right, dude.
All right. Yeah. Love you, brother.
Love you, brother.
Thank you, everybody, for listening. We will see you next time, and may the Force be with you all.
Bye.
Bye.
All right, cut the chatter. Roger, Roger.